Before we dive into today's episode, I have something truly special to share. Next September, I'll be leading an intimate women's retreat through the south of France and northern Italy, and you're invited. Picture this: mornings exploring the colorful markets of the French Riviera, afternoons sipping wine, and a hotel view with golden Mediterranean sunsets. Whether you love photography, food, or just want to reconnect with your playful creative self, this trip is designed for you. Spots are limited, so if all this sounds like your kind of adventure, please visit tourwithabsolutely.com and look for the tour France and Italy with Crystal. You can also send me a message or check out the show notes. Claudine Hemingway is a descendant of famed writer Ernest Hemingway. We bumped into each other at a party and decided to team up and dive deep into French history, but with a twist, by bringing a spotlight to those lesser-known creatives in France. This is History with a Hemingway. All right, guys, I'm back with Claudine, and we are going to talk more about the Louvre fashion today. If you've been following along, we've been talking about lots of different sections of the couture at the Louvre right now, and Claudine's going to take us to the next episode.
Yeah, so we've covered the first section, which is the Middle Ages and the Byzantine period, and now we're going into the Renaissance. So there's quite a few different pieces in the Renaissance collection, and it's pretty amazing. And we'll talk about one room today because there's 3 designs in there, but the room is pretty spectacular, and there's so much about this. So the Renaissance was really an important period of time because after the Middle Ages, where you had a lot of stuff that was done, with metals, with the gold, with the reliquaries, and tapestries, the Renaissance starts to get into more paintings, sculptures, and still more tapestries. The King of France, Francois Premier, he was a big one that spearheaded the transition with the grand chateaus he was building in the Loire. And then he brought all the Italian artists of France, including Leonardo da Vinci, who we've talked about at length with the Mona Lisa. But the Renaissance slowly began at the end of 15th century, 1494 to be exact, and continues until the death of Henry IV in 1610, a period with a lasting impact, especially at the Louvre, because Francois Premier at that time ordered a new palace to be created that would rival the Emperor Charles V, who was kind of his sworn enemy. His vision continued on with his son Henry II, and all the way through Henry IV. Architects Pierre Lescot and Philibert Delorme, along with the sculptor Jean Goujon, defined the Renaissance, blending the classical features and the detailed ornamentation that you can see in the Lescot wing now, especially on the outside, which is just a few steps away from the exhibit. But it was a pretty bit major time. When you talk about the Middle Ages, we were talking about like multiple centuries that put that together. But now with the Renaissance, you're really only looking at, less than 200 years. So it's a smaller period of time. We find in the same elements with the Renaissance rooms, a few of the things from the Middle Ages, but especially with the collection of tapestries. But this first room you go into, and you probably remember this room because it's got some kind of unforgettable things. But the wall is hung with 12 large tapestries. And this room was created for this part of the museum. We did an episode 2 years ago about the Louvre of the Richelieu wing, which was open in 1993. So it's not that old of a part of the Louvre, which is crazy, which on a week like this in Paris, when it's really hot, this is the part you go to in the Louvre because it is air conditioned, and it's not just air conditioned, it's like air conditioned airline jet. That's the power of it. And I was in there this morning, and I think I'm just going to camp out there the next 3 days because it's so nice and cool.
Well, that's good intel. I always tell people there's air conditioning in some parts of the Louvre, not all of it.
Yeah, not all parts of the Louvre, but I did notice today I was around the Galerie d'Apollon, and it was actually on higher, but it was also because I was the only person in there. So maybe, you go into around Mona Lisa, and there's just so many people. I don't think it matters. It would have blocks of ice around it, and it still would be hot in there. But if you go to the Richelieu wing, because it is so new, it's nice and cool in there. So that's a good place to go. But this room itself was created specifically for these tapestries. These tapestries date to the first quarter of the 16th century. They're called the Hunts of Maximilian I. They each, there's 12, so there's one for each month of the year, and it's also all about the seasonal hunting in Belgium. Artist Bernard van Orly designed these cartons, which is the creation of what they make. Basically, it's not a full-fledged painting. It's basically just it's like cartoon. And if you translate the word into English, it's basically means cardboard, but there is the second room that we'll talk about in the future has a few of these, so it's interesting to see those before you see a tapestry. But they were done between 1528 and 1533. They were woven at the Darmoillon Atelier in Belgium. We aren't really sure who commissioned this set. Some sources believe it was for the Habsburg family, specifically the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, Francois Premier's favorite person, or his sister Mary of Hungary, or his Aunt Margaret of Austria. We don't know for sure who did it, but the central images by Van Orly focus on either deer, boar, or bird hunting. If you are, squeamish about hunting, there's nothing gory in any of these. It's more the implied, and it's all about, because it is for each month of the year. It also has, the December, there's no leaves on the trees and things like that. But it also starts, the whole collection begins with March, because at that time, in the beginning of the 16th century, Belgium and France went by the Julian calendar, and the Julian calendar marks March 25th as basically New Year's Eve, which is very odd to think because that's also the beginning of spring. A closer look at the trees in the tapestry, like I said, with the astrological symbol as well, and then that all gives you the little depiction of the month. Van Orly also includes its images of ceramic vases and openwork baskets on the left and right edges of the tapestries, and then huge palm trunks that come out, and garlands are wrapped of flowers for each season. The lower edge is kind of bizarre, because here you have all these hunting scenes, and it's divinities and sea gods and sea creatures. But they believe that it was most likely influenced by Raphael, because he had some pieces in the Vatican that were like that, like a sarcophagus, although Van Orly had never been to Italy. He also included with the ceramic vases, at the very top of it, there's the actual crest of Belgium. These tapestries, though, specifically of anything that you would look at in the beginning of the Byzantine all the way to the Renaissance, one thing of any piece of art that's easy to see, because it's a little bit like a painting, how much these tapestries influence fashion. The 16th and 17th century could still be found today on the runways. And if you look at this, this exhibit is such a great opportunity to see how these things link together. But it captured the style of the period in wool and gold threads on the tapestries, and you see that carried out by the designers. The clothing in the collection of Maximilian and the tapestry shows these puffy sleeves and jackets cinched at the waist, and a wide, almost bubble-like hem, often open to show colors, other colors of fabric underneath. The three pieces in this room expertly capture all of it, and including one from one of my favorite designers. And again, we are on the fourth time of me talking about people that are actually alive.
I know, this is huge. This is big.
I know. It's pretty big that I get to talk about people that are alive. So as you enter this room, and you're coming from the Byzantine section, on the right, you're going to see this mannequin, and it has a piece on there, and it's done by Karl Lagerfeld. He did it for that house that he worked for, that I don't love the name. I'll say it one time. Chanel. But each year, beginning in 2002, the house and Karl Lagerfeld created a special collection called the Métier d'Art. And this was arts and crafts, basically. It was a collection that's purpose was to focus on the superior craftsmanship of the house and their attention to detail. While I have very intense feelings, as we know, about the woman who started this label, you can't overlook how beautiful this is. And this is just one of those that you want to get as close as you possibly can to really look at the details. Each year, Lagerfeld would choose a different period and location. His Paris collections were always, his past collections were always titled Paris and something, and they linked a different place starting with 2005, which was Paris, Tokyo. Oftentimes, he'd actually have that show in that city. So in the 2005, he had the show in Tokyo. Chanel is the only house that does this, and they still do this collection. Some call it pre-fall, but it is actually really amazing because it just is focusing on the craftsmanship that they have to create these pieces. There's three pieces from the 2010 Paris Byzance collection that were in the first part. Two of them were accessories, which we'll talk about another time. This piece here is from the 2012 Paris Edinburgh. It includes Fair Isle, very much looks like someone's going to take off into the woods and go hunting. This show was held in the very historic Linlithgow Palace, which is in the center of Scotland, where Mary, Queen of Scots, was actually born in 1542.
Oh, that's fascinating. I love that.
And we have talked about Mary. So we've talked about her, a whole episode about her in the past, and it was on a cold and snowy December night. They did it out in the courtyard where the guests watching the show were covered, but at one point it did start snowing. So it's just, very magical. But if you look at this, there's the blouse that she's wearing is white, almost a little translucent. It's silk cigaline with frayed edges on the shoulders. It gives this impression of the puffy sleeves you see in the tapestries. The dress is a custom tweed by Lesage with pleats like a Sayon or cassock jacket and robes. And the bubble-like hem is perfect for the tapestry that's just behind it. The outstanding part of this outfit is the necklace and the belt, created by Le Marie for the House of Chanel. It's covered with feathers from pheasants, pigeons, ducks, and guinea fowl. It's so gorgeous. It's the colors. It's got reds and browns and whites. It's so pretty. And then they made a matching gold-plated belt that has little circles and oval shapes that are then covered with the feathers. It's just amazing. On the runway, the model wore it with argyle black and gray tights, making it look even more Scottish. They don't have the tights there, but I think they meant to because the plaque actually refers to socks. So I'm not sure exactly what happened, but they don't have the socks on it. Just behind it is, so if you stand back a little and take the mannequin in and you look behind, is the December tapestry. It's a special one of the dozen because it includes the image of Ferdinand in the center, who is a grandson of Emperor Maximilian I. He's on a horse with one of the red Sayon jackets, and he leans towards a boar that's been caught by the greyhound. The greyhound on the top that's kind of looks like he's ready to attack the boar is wearing a fancy little coat. So it's very fancy. The trees on this one are very bare, so it shows the cold months of the year. So it's a perfect time to wear this little outfit by Lagerfeld. It's pretty stunning. I did go on a deep dive and I had to say that, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's a lot of
Even though
birds. Lots of birds.
it's, but one little thing is, he picked Scotland because Coco Chanel had a tie to Scotland, and her tie to Scotland was her 10-year love affair with the Duke of Westminster, Hugh Grosvenor, who was also a major anti-Semitic. So, although I said something nice about Carl, there's the other part of, just linking it back to how great of a person, and that's major sarcasm, that she was. There is one name that can be found all over this exhibit, and it's used by many, many houses that most people probably won't know. Your friend Rebecca would definitely know this, but probably not many other people. The Maison Lesage began in 1924 by Albert and Mary Louise Lesage. Mary Louise had taken embroidery classes at the Michonnet Embroidery School that was started in 1858. and counted Charles Worth, who was the very first haute couture designer, as a client. There's also a major exhibit at the Petit Palais dedicated to him. Definitely, people should go and see that. They changed the name of the house to Lesage, and in 1924, after the purchase, they worked with the biggest designers of the time, including Dior, Schiaparelli, and their son Francois successfully ran the company with the high importance of growing the skills of the Lesage atelier while keeping its link to the past and the art of embroidery. Francois partnered with Yves Saint Laurent jackets created by paintings of Van Gogh covered in sequins. It took almost 700 hours of work to do. Hubert de Givenchy and Lagerfeld designed some of their pieces here in the exhibit specifically. The list goes on to Terry Mugler, Gautier, Lacroix, Gatin. The company in 2002 that was purchased by Le 19M, 19M, which is owned by Chanel, but still they still work with many, many other designers. And when I when I first went to the exhibit the first few times and I'm reading the plaques, this name and the next name I'm going to tell you came up all the time. So I was like, who are these people? And it is actually, while it's still owned, it's owned now. The parent company of it is Chanel. They still they still are, telling them work with whoever you want. So it's not like something that they're just taking on as saying you could only do this stuff for us. But many of the feathers and flowers you find in this collection come from an atelier dating to the 18th and 19th century. Maison Legeron began in 1770, creating artificial flowers and silk along with feathers that would adorn the courtiers of Versailles under Louis XV. In 1880, it was purchased by Louis Legeron and run until 2021 by his great-grandson, Bruno Legeron, when it was acquired by 19M. They created most of the iconic flowers that have adorned the haute couture designs, from YSL to the heels of Louboutin. There's some Louboutin heels in this exhibit that are the Marie Antoinette ones, and that's something they created. In 1880, the Plumasserie Atelier Le Marie was created by hat maker Palmior and Le Marie Coyette, and they made hats. And because the hats at the time, it was very in fashion to be covered with flowers and feathers, they decided to create their own atelier that could do that. So they did that, and that was also, of course, sold to 19M. But 19M has some of the best craftsmanship that craftsmen and women. They have people that just are like the masters of pleating. It's pretty amazing, and they do open their atelier in September to visit on my favorite weekend. So this year I'm definitely going to try to go.
Yeah, I mean, just all this fashion happening right now. It's so fun and so many different things to see and different like styles. Like even if we can't wear them, they're fun to look at.
They are very fun. Right past this one is another dress. It's by a brand called Undercover. It is by Jun Takahashi. It blends a bunch of textures together to evoke the Renaissance. A Japanese designer named Jun Takahashi began his Undercover label in 1993 as high-end streetwear in Japan. By 2002, he debuted his Spring-Summer 2003 collection in Paris, bringing the audience literally to tears. His collections are a mix of texture, distressed fabrics, embellishment, and hardware. The design on display in the Louvre is much softer than his menswear would be of the 16th century. The top is created by bonding fabric together. It is like this really beautiful
Nice.
silver fabric, and it basically gives kind of the feeling of armor, but they bonded it with other fabric underneath, so it gave structure and kind of this Elizabethan collar. It has burgundy faux fur covers on the forearms for a cool winter night, and then it has a mustard silk organza honeycomb skirt, which always reminds me of those Easter decorations of the Easter eggs that you open up and they're like honeycomb. But take a look at this tights that it's wearing. The model is wearing, the mannequin, because it actually almost looks like socks, but the bottom part of what is, quote unquote socks has unicorns, angels, a damask print, the Renaissance relief, as well as engineering and molecular mapping. So it gives it a little bit more of that street look to it. It is really stunning when you look at it, because it's just so many different textures. It's so pretty. The Louvre paired this one with the September tapestry that's ruled by Libra and is dedicated to deer hunting. And this one has a scene called the ballot, which is a French term meaning that the deer has thrown himself into the water thinking he evaded the hunters. But the hunter and the dogs come jumping in after him. The hunters and more noblemen are gathered on the right, very dressed up, very fancy, and they're waiting on their horses. Many of the tapestries in this collection of 12 share a bit of the Belgian Sonia forest. The largest urban forest that stretches through Brussels, that goes through also through Flanders. It's protected by UNESCO. In the September tapestry in the far distance, you see the Ravenstein Hunting Lodge at the Groendel Priory. It was created at the start of the 14th century, holding the St. Augustine Monastery. It was sold off in 1787 and completely destroyed. So I kept trying to find images of the priory and the hunting lodge and couldn't find anything because it has been destroyed. But I did read that there's some beautiful hiking trails to go through up there. So if anybody goes to Belgium, I don't hike. I'm not a big outdoorsy person, but I was actually tempted to go and check it out.
I mean, that says a lot considering you're not an outdoorsy person.
Well, the pictures I saw was like, fall in September and everything was orange and red. And I was like, oh, maybe I'd go then. Now, the last one I'll share today is from a designer that I absolutely love, and he's alive. It is a piece by Jean-Charles de Castelbajac. He is a designer and artist here in Paris. He was born in 1949 in Casablanca. He was always fascinated at an early age with the military history. The fascination transferred to fashion when he created a military jacket cut from an old blanket that was later worn by John Lennon. In 2002, his creations began to expand from the runway onto the walls of Paris, where with chalk in hand, he quickly draws an angel and signs it with a simple little like plus sign. These started as keepsakes dedicated to loved ones, a love note of a family or a friend, somebody that had passed away. But I first came across this many, many years ago outside of the Louvre, and I'd always get a picture. And now when I find them all the time, I get so happy. And I have a friend of ours, Camille, whenever she comes across them, she always takes a picture and sends them to me because they're chalk. So sometimes they're there for a long time if they're protected, and sometimes they're only there until somebody wipes it off or it rains. There is one at the back. I think I showed you this one at the back of as you walk out of the Hotel Particulier up at Montmartre. Castelbajac also does prints of these angels, including one he did on the night of April 15th, 2019, as the news of the fire of Notre Dame spread through Paris. He went there to watch. It came full circle when the Bishop Ulrich selected John Charles to design more than 700 liturgical robes worn for the opening festivities and for Notre Dame and the masses for special masses they do. He also created the parish flags that they march through. So every single parish in Paris had one. He created all those as well. Seeing this design that he has in the Louvre always makes me happy because I walk by it and I just think of him. It was created for his autumn-winter pret-a-porter 2010-2011 collection. The title of the collection was The Go-Go Diva, and it was an homage to Lady Godiva and features many elements of the reinterpreted Middle Ages and the Renaissance that he loves. It was this one specifically was inspired by the Bayeux Tapestry. Also, Joan of Arc and other strong women of the medieval period. The design on display is looks like tapestry. It's like a little jacket and a mini skirt. It's tapestry like fabric that he had made at the Cray Atelier in Roubaix, and then edged with faux fur. In true Castle by Jacques fashion, he added a whimsical edition of Bambi, the Disney Bambi. And then on the jacket, there's two Bambis, and then on the skirt, there's Bambi and Feline, who's Bambi's love, kind of frolicking around. It's called the Medieval Camouflage Bambi. It includes faux fur headpiece in the shape of antlers on their head. It's a perfect thing to look, maybe you wear that when it's very cold out. But he did quite a few pieces in this collection that were all dedicated to Bambi, including like a total tunic that's completely covered in sequins, a strapless dress, and even shoes that have Bambi's little face on it. This one is tied to the Tapestry of August, which is all about deer hunting, and it kind of shows the largest image of a deer set again in the Sognan forest. The large deer is trapped in the thick brambles while a majestic stag in the background is chased down on the other side. But I think maybe Jean-Charles Bambi could take on the hunters and stop them.
Let's see.
But I do love it. I love that they have his piece in there. And he was also, I got to see him on the night of the pre-opening party, that he was standing right in front of it, and his adorable wife was wearing the Bambi shoes.
Oh, that's so cute. I love that you saw him in person.
I know my dream is to find him drawing an angel on the street and have him do one for my grandma. But I've had messages with him all the time, so I'm going to ask him if he could do an angel for my grandma.
Yeah, just ask him. You got a connection.
Yeah, he's pretty great.
Well, guys, head on over to ClaudineHemingway.com to learn more. Book Claudine for a tour, read her blog, and tune in next week. Thanks for listening today, guys. If you're interested in learning more about Claudine, her tours, history, and the beautiful photographs that she posts all over Instagram, tune into her website, ClaudineHemingway.com.